Crematorium Joint Committee, due to government advice, will be held virtually. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed as soon as it is practically possible following the meeting. Everyone participating in the meeting will be assessing it from remote locations. Please could everybody ensure that mobile phones are switched off or to silent mode. Please do not use your mobile phone at any time throughout the meeting. Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda. Officers will present a summary of the key points in relation to the agenda reports. The agenda can be viewed on the Council's website. Members and officers may switch their cameras on when speaking, but I would ask that, with the exception of myself as chairperson, all other times you keep your cameras and microphones switched off. If anyone wishes to raise a point or question, they should press the hands up icon on the screen hand at the top right hand side of the Microsoft Teams window. I will then come to you in turn. Please lower your hand when you have finished speaking. An officer from Democratic Services will be supporting the meeting and monitoring the use of microphones. When necessary, he will mute those not being used. I would ask officers to introduce themselves when I invite them to speak. The officer from Democratic Services will now announce those members in attendance today. Thank you very much, Michael, I should say.
Thank you, Chair.
Michael.
Members in attendance today are Councillor Anil Pachella, Councillor Julia Williams, Councillor Stuart Baldwin, Councillor Jeff Cox, Councillor Stuart Edwards, and Councillor Gwyn John, yourself as chairperson.
That's right, thank you. Thank you, Michael. Do we have apologies, please?
Yes, we do. I've received apologies from Councillor John Spanswick, Councillor Elaine Venables, and Councillor Gavin Hopkins.
Thank you very much.
May I also
Are there any
add,
other
please,
apologies from members?
some apologies from Councillor Turner, please, and I believe Councillor Hopkins. Thank you.
Right, we are. Thank you very much. Right, we move on to declarations of interest. We're all interested, obviously. That's why we're here. Thank you very much. Right, approval of minutes from the 11th of June. I'm sure you've read the minutes. And unless I hear from anyone, I assume that we're all accepting the minutes. Thank you very much. Right, we're on to agenda item 4. This is the Green Flag Award. I trust this is coming from Zach. Over to you, Zach. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I won't take up too much of anyone's time with this report, because it's a fairly brief message, but a very positive one. About the Green Flag Award, which we've been successfully awarded for the 12th year in succession, which is fantastic. So for those that aren't familiar, paragraph 3.1 of the report does describe what the Green Flag Award is, and it's a benchmark national standard for parks and green spaces in England and Wales, launched back in 1966, which recognises and rewarded the best green spaces in the country. So we've been applying for this award for a number of 12 years. First getting it back in 2010 at the crematorium grounds, and I think everyone that's been there, you know, we consistently get fantastic comments about the grounds, the standard of maintenance that's undertaken by the staff that are based there, and by the staff that are part of our area teams that maintain the grass, etc. And you know, it really is always kept to a very high environmental standard, with a good diverse range of plantations around the grounds, and I think everyone will agree on that. And that has been yet again recognised by the award of the Green Flag standard that we applied for again this year. So fantastic news, and my thanks to Joanne and the teams that managed to maintain this for us. You know, it's been a particularly trying year with, you know, what's happened, you know, maintaining those grounds through the pandemic. You know, I think just about every section of every local authority has had a period where people had to work in different ways due to COVID restrictions, periods where people were off ill or having to go into self-isolation. So to maintain these standards throughout those periods, I think is of particular note. So really pass my thanks to the team, and to let all of the board know that we have managed to maintain it again. I will just, there is a financial implication, so just for everyone's awareness, there is a £350 charge for submission to apply for consideration of the award, but I think it's something that's well worthwhile. Certainly recognises the hard work that's done, and allows us to to show what we've got, not just in being recognised by the visitors, but actually nationally recognised as well. We can't this year. We're not having the usual handover award that's normally done because of the COVID restrictions. The certificate was delivered directly to the Coychurch Crematorium, and that's understandable why that's taking place. And then on the 14th of October, Keep Wales Tidy, who actually run the awards, are actually then going to mark the event for all of those that are successful with the awards, and we'll do some further media releases at the time. So that brings me to the end of the report for members to note the content.
Thank you, sir. Right, any member, please. Well, I would just like to say, Zach, it's absolutely fantastic that we can still maintain the standards we've set. It's always difficult to hit the standards once you've hit them, but to keep it up over these number of years is absolutely wonderful. I cannot ever remember going to a better crematorium than Coychurch, and the number of people that have come on Wednesday were so impressed. Friends of mine from Swansea and Buckinghamshire came on Wednesday, and they were so impressed with Coychurch. And I think it's huge credit to all the officers and staff that we've got such a wonderful crematorium. And the grounds, everything about Coychurch is exceptional. And I thank you all very much indeed. Does anyone else want to add anything?
I just like to back you up, Gwyn, on that. It's a great, marvellous achievement, really, for 12 years. And well done to all the staff, and let's keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, if there's no one else, we'll now move on to the next item, which is recycling of metal scheme donations. Joe, over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow protocol, I believe everybody knows me, but I'm Bereavement Services Manager and Registrar for Bridgend County Borough Council and Coychurch Crematorium Joint Committee. The aim of the report on page 11 is to obtain the Joint Committee's permission to update the previously agreed list of organisations to receive charitable funding from the recycling of metals arising from the cremation process. This national recycling scheme is organised and managed by the Institute of Cemetery and Crematorium Management, and any surplus monies after the deduction of costs from the sale of the metals are distributed to charities associated with bereavement services via the ICCM. And the ICCM requests nominations from the crematoria that contribute to the scheme, approximately 4 monthly intervals, and only one charity can be nominated by each crematorium at a time. The charity cheque is issued to the crematorium to enable it to present it to its nominated charity. There's no financial cost to the crematorium from the scheme. A list of the charities that the Joint Committee has previously supported, along with the sum donated, is provided in the report on page 12. In order to ensure that proactive and equitable arrangements are in place in readiness for the Institute's request for nominations from the crematorium for funding for bereavement-related charities, the committee is requested to consider the list of charitable organisations detailed on pages 12, 13 and 14. And these charities have approached the crematorium for funding, and subject to the Joint Committee's discussions and approval, will be nominated one by one in the order in which they're listed and will include any amendments or additional recommendations agreed by the Joint Committee today. I have a slight update to the published list for the Joint Committee's information. A few weeks ago, I was asked by Councillor Spanswick if I could include Follow Your Dreams for the Joint Committee's consideration. Councillor Spanswick has contacted me this week to request that this recommendation is withdrawn for now, while the charity undergoes some unforeseen restructure. He has asked if it could be replaced with a proposal for Bridgend Carers Centre to be considered instead, as they are one of the charities he is supporting in his year as Mayor of BCBC. So the Joint Committee is asked to note the charitable donations previously made by Coychurch Crematorium and to nominate and support a list of suitable charities for submission for funding from the National Recycling of Metals Scheme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Joe. By Councillor Baldwin.
Thank you, Councillor John. I'm sorry, I don't know why my camera doesn't seem to be picking up any light in my bedroom at the moment. Oh, there we are. Now you can all see my ugly mug. Sorry about that. Yeah, I've looked at these and for those of you that don't know, I'm cabinet member for Bridgend and for communities, and cemeteries and crematoriums are obviously within my portfolio. And it's a bit of a pastime of mine when I'm out on ward visits to go and have a look at any cemeteries that are in those wards. And I've been out and about recently, and I've noticed a couple of them that have been around for a damn sight longer than most of us that are in this meeting. And we start to see headstones and graves that family have long forgotten about. And I've been thinking I've got Cemetery Road Cemetery in my own ward. And for a long time, I've been thinking of a way to try to improve the aging headstones and graves that are in there. So I thought about how I could set up a charity to look at this, but then did the wise thing first and did a Google search and found out there is a national charity that operates across England and Wales that does this. So I was wondering whether the committee would be I hope the committee would support my suggestion to add God's Own Acre or Caring for God's Own Acre to the list, and therefore set up then some sort of policy or procedure to be able to identify through the bereavement managers and cemetery managers across the Joint Committee to identify where we could spend money to improve. Because while the local authority ends up with ownership of those headstones after a while, and we say we put them safe, that means that the stones are often just laid down and they can sink and end up in a very sorry state. And considering we want to have our cemeteries as a place for remembrance and not just about sadness, and for me, walking around a graveyard and seeing stones in a sorry state makes me sad. And I'd love to be able to walk around and see them in a better condition, and older ones being refurbished so that people actually see that we don't forget about our dead, no matter how long they've been dead. So I hope the committee would be willing to support the addition of Caring for God's Own Acre to the list if possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Any other member would like to come in on this? No comments? No, it's very interesting actually that Councillor Baldwin brought this up, because in Lantford Major we're carrying out Lantford Major Town Council as the cemetery in Lantford Major, and they're currently carrying out this work in Lantford Major Cemetery, and we're contacting all those families that are still around with reference to their gravestones if they're declared unsafe. And this is a huge problem in so many cemeteries, because again, we've got many stones there which there are no recollection of any survivors alive. So it is a problem. I share your view there, Councillor Baldwin. It is certainly a big problem. Well, as nobody's come forward, do you have any objection, or do I have a second of Councillor Baldwin's suggestion?
I second it,
Councillor
Councillor John.
Williams. Right, we are. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Julia. Right. Is there any other suggestions? Anything that anybody's got any against this proposal? Are we all happy to support Councillor Baldwin? Yes,
Definitely.
we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Edward, you happy?
Yeah, I'm happy. The only thing is, if I'm honest, the cost of repairing or making them tidy, I don't really know what it is. I suspect it's quite expensive, so I'm not sure how far any sort of financial sort of contribution would go. I mean, it's a wonderful idea. I'm all for supporting the idea, but I often wonder how far, say, £1,000 contribution would go in a churchyard like Cemetery Road. But I do support the councillor's proposal.
Right. Are we all happy then to support and move forward on this and refer it back to Joe? And obviously it depends on the amounts of money that come from this, but obviously as it comes under Councillor Baldwin's remit as the county councillor, cabinet member for Bridgend, then we can maybe have a future report down the line as to how well this has worked out in the year. Are you all happy with that? Councillor Baldwin, you want to come back in?
Thank you, Councillor John. Yes, and more than happy. And I'll do whatever I can to work with Joanna and others to make sure that the amount of work on officers is limited, and be in contact with that charity now to see about whether they have scope to be able to operate within our area. If not, then we will remove them from the list, obviously, and we'll look to see what we can do to set up our own. Because for me, I think that it's one of those things where people would even be willing to make contributions towards to see those improvements from within the community. But thank you to the rest of the committee for supporting that proposal.
Right, thank you very much. Okay, Joe, if we go down that road and then we'll have a future reference. Thank you very much, members.
Yes, thank you.
Right, we'll go back to the agenda, and now we come to the next item is revenue monitoring. Now we can come to Elise, who's going to take this report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. For the purpose of the recording, my name is Eilish Thomas, Finance Manager, Financial Control and Closing. The purpose of the report today is to inform the committee of the details of the income and expenditure for the first quarter of the 2021-22 financial year, and to give a projection of the final outturn. And secondly, to obtain approval to submit an amended annual accounting statement to Audit Wales. Paragraph 3.1 details that the 2021-22 revenue budget was approved by the committee at its meeting on the 5th of March this year. The current budget position and projected outturn is shown in paragraph 4.1. The Accounts and Audit Wales Regulations 2018 require that the Joint Committee must formally approve an annual accounting statement by the 31st of May 2021 and certify that they present fairly the financial position of the crematorium. Due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, a notice was issued advising that the return would not be approved by the 31st of May, but would be so as soon as possible after this date, in accordance to Regulation 10 of the Accounts and Audit Wales Regulations 2018. The return was approved at the last committee meeting of the 11th of June. Following audit review, if amendments are required, the auditor will send the statement back to the Joint Committee for amendment and reapproval before the auditor can certify the statement. The certified annual accounting statement must be published by no later than the 31st July 2021. As it was not possible to publish in line with this date, a notice has been placed on the website confirming that the amended return would be presented to the committee today. Table 1 in paragraph 4.1 shows the detail of income and expenditure for the period April to June 2021, together with the projected outturn for the year. Table 1 shows a projected deficit of 456,000 for the 2021-22 financial year. This is made up of an overspend of 39,000 on employees, which is due to 2 temporary crematorium technicians being employed, offset by an underspend of 11,000 on other employee costs. It is anticipated that the 2 temporary posts will continue until the end of the current financial year, with April to September's costs being funded from the Welsh Government COVID-19 Hardship Fund. The corresponding income relating to this is shown in the table under Welsh Government grant. There's an underspend of 3,000 on premises, which is due to a saving against budget on business rates. An overspend of 6,000 on supplies and services, which is due to additional projected spend on items for resale. An increase of 14,000 in projected fees and charges income, which is due to additional memorial sales. And a 23,000 increase in the Welsh Government grant, which is due to the Welsh Government COVID-19 Hardship Fund being received for the 2 temporary technicians. Table 2 in paragraph 4.2 shows a breakdown of the capital financing budget for the year, along with the expenditure for the period April to June and projected outturn for the year. The capital financing spend is currently projected to be on budget at 845,000. Paragraph 4.3 explains how the annual return for 2021, which can be found in Appendix 1, was submitted to Audit Wales at the end of June 2021, showing a surplus of 845,000 for the year and an accumulated balance of 2,899,000. There was an error in the 1920 balance carried forward figure. This can be found on page 2, line 11 of Appendix 1, which showed a figure of 20,523,652 instead of 2,053,652. This figure relates to balances for 2019-20 and does not affect the 2020-21 figures. As the report has now been revised, the return needs to be approved and re-signed by the committee. The amended version is shown in Appendix 2. A copy of the certified return will be made available at the crematorium and electronically on the Bridgend website. All of the financial implications are included within the report as detailed in paragraph 8.1. Therefore, I'd like to move to paragraph 9.1 and recommend that the committee note the Q1 budget monitoring statement for 2021-22 and approve and sign the revised annual accounting statement for 2020-21.
Thank you very much, Elise. Any member, please? Are all members happy to accept the recommendations?
I'm happy, Chair.
I'm happy,
Okay.
Chair. Thank
There
you.
we are. Thank you very much. Everyone in favour? Thank you very much. That completes the recommendations. Thank you, Elise, very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And that actually is the last item I've got on the agenda today. There are no urgent items. So it just remains for me to thank you all for attending this afternoon. There's one thing I wanted to ask, Zach. It's regarding, I take it that there's not going to be a Christmas carol service this year.
I'm very glad you asked the question, Chair. I've just putting my hand up to interject with a small matter of AOB, and it was the Christmas service arrangements. So Joanna can feel free to chip in at any point on this, and Councillor Baldwin. We've had some significant internal discussion around the Christmas service, initially starting from a point of, well, we won't have one, because of the risks involved, obviously, with the pandemic, as clearly we didn't have one last year. Then we talked about all sorts of options. What about having a digital online service, where we hold it, but you could view from afar. And where we've got to is we think we can go ahead. Well, we can go ahead with a Christmas service. We will be able to have one, but it won't be everything that you perhaps come to expect to the Christmas service.
Yeah.
So there would need to be certain precautions that we take. Most noticeably, the refreshments at the end that we would normally see, we wouldn't want to have.
Yeah.
We would want to control the numbers attending, because obviously we don't want too many people standing in the cloister, etc. So we probably need to introduce some sort of form of ticketing or booking. And clearly things like wind instruments being played from the side, towards the congregation would also not be appropriate given the COVID risks. But that said, we do believe we can go ahead with a Christmas service.
Yeah.
Obviously, masks will need to be worn, and you know, the main format of the event will be able to be followed. So Joanna will be able to send out details of that. We will be able to go ahead. We've done lots of risk assessments, but it won't be quite what those that have attended in the past are used to seeing.
Well, members, anyone would like to speak before I come in?
I think that's excellent news myself. I've been to 2 or 3 since I've been on the committee, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. So I think that's excellent news.
Yeah. Well, I'd be very happy with that plan actually, Zach, because it's totally understandable the way we're looking, you know. And when I didn't see it on this agenda, I was a little bit disappointed because it's a special occasion, I think, the Christmas Carol service. But I do think you're quite correct in everything you reported, you know, with the numbers, etc. And it's all about the Christmas Carol service, not all about the refreshments afterwards as well. You know, whilst the refreshments, it's lovely to get together afterwards. At the same time, we've got to respect the fact that we're working within the guidelines. So I'd be very happy with your arrangements, and I'm sure the members will as well. So we look forward to hear from you, Joe, in due course.
Lovely.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, there we are. That winds up today's agenda. Thank you very much again for attending, and thank you for your good wishes to my